The requested investigation by the ICC leaves a lot of questions, especially after President Duterte said that he will not cooperate with the group. To discuss this matter, joining us is Atty. Gilbert Andres, Deputy Executive Director of the Center for International Law Philippines, or CenterLaw. Good evening, Atty. Andres. Welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Robbie.
First of all, what changes here as we move from the period of inquiry and now to this request for a formal investigation? What's the difference?
I think the big difference here is that there's now a formal request by the Office of the Prosecutor to the ICCP trial chamber to give it the authority to investigate instances of crimes against humanity here in the Philippines when the Philippines was still a state party to the ICC.
Now, to that point, when the Philippines was still a party to the ICC, government is saying you have no jurisdiction because we left the ICC in 2019. What's to qualify or to understand in that statement?
Well, actually, that's inaccurate because there was a time when the Philippines was a state party. If I may use an analogy from marriage, even married couples who get a divorce, there was still a time that they were married. That's why they have custody agreements. They have alimony agreements. That's the same for the Philippines. There was a time that we were married, in a sense, to the ICC when we were a state party. And that was from November 1, 2011 to March 16, 2019. Hence, any international crimes that occurred in the Philippines during that period, and that's within the jurisdiction of the ICC, is really subject to the jurisdiction of the ICC.
Okay, so jurisdiction is one thing, but the actual capability to carry out an investigation, especially in the country where witnesses and resources are, is still another matter. How far can the ICC go in the investigation that it seeks if, even granting jurisdiction, government refuses to cooperate?
Well, okay, there are two ways to look at it. First, from a legal point of view, even though the Philippines arguably withdrew from the ICC, it still has the residual obligation to cooperate. And that's in Article 127, Paragraph 2 of the ICC Rome Statute. But number two, in the logistical challenge that the Philippines will not cooperate, then there's really a difficulty on the part of the Office of the Prosecutor how to really actualize that investigation. But I think the ICC Office of the Prosecutor has enough means and has enough power under the Rome Statute to look for creative ways and means to investigate, even if the Philippines will not cooperate.
Okay, but Gilbert, Atty. Andres, one more question. What does that mean, being creative? How exactly can the ICC compel the government to open up for investigations? And for that matter, is there proof of concept of that in other cases in other countries?
Well, actually, the ICC can invoke the residual obligation under Article 127, Paragraph 2. In fact, it's the obligation of the Philippines to cooperate, even though it's not a state party. But when I say creative means, for example, this Zoom, maybe it's one way of actually interviewing potential witnesses through online platforms. So I think the ICC Office of the Prosecutor will think of means that are within their capability so that they can go against that logistical challenge posed by the Philippine government.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Atty. Andres. Atty. Gilbert Andres, Deputy Executive Director of the Center for International Law, or CenterLaw Philippines.